Hey guys, this is Dave with Gazaudio, and this is the K19, which is FIIO's latest flagship desktop headphone DAC amp combination. Now, most of you know that while we do get the occasional flagship level devices in for review, here at Gazaudio, most of the devices we cover are typically relatively affordable because, well, first of all, they are more affordable, and secondly, there are a lot of hobbyists, including myself to a degree, that aren't necessarily convinced that in order to achieve excellent sound, you have to spend exorbitant amounts of money on high-end gear. And I guess what it really boils down to is that budget threshold, or where that very fine line is drawn between what is reasonably priced and what's overpriced, can be a little different for all of us. So what about the K19? Is it really that good? And do I feel like it is worth the $1,300 asking price? Well, hopefully I can answer that question in this video. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get started. So this is everything that you get in the box. We've got the K19, of course. It also comes with a power cord, which you can't see because it's plugged in, a nice little remote, headphone holder that basically just sits right here on top of the K19. If you are using it in the vertical orientation, they've also included some cool metal feet and screws and a screwdriver to attach the feet with, or you can have it rest horizontally on your desktop as well. And they've included some rubber feet for that orientation, and then they also provide a 3.5 millimeter audio cable, a Type-C USB cable, a Type 2.0 USB cable, a USB adapter, a headphone adapter, so pretty much everything you need to get the K19 up and running. So as you can see, this thing is loaded with all kinds of inputs and outputs, plus it just has a ton of features. So my goal is to cover all the main points as quickly as possible, as to keep this video as short as possible. So if I miss anything, I'm sorry, but I'll be sure to link this device in the description, and you should be able to find anything that I don't cover on either FIIO's website or hifigo.com. So we'll go ahead and go over the outside of the unit first. On the front, we have 3 different output options: a balanced XLR, 1/4 inch single-ended, and then a 4.4 balanced output. We also have a small color display, a Type-C input, and then 2 multi-function knobs. The top one is the power/volume knob, and then the other is the menu input selector knob. Then on the back, we have a Bluetooth antenna, 2 HDMIs, one is an input, the other an output, /ARC connection. We then have the 12-volt triggers, a ground switch, 2 Type-C connections. One is an RS-232 port and the other just a Type-C port. And then there is a coaxial input and output, an optical input and output, 2 pairs of analog RCA outputs, a pair of XLR balanced line outputs, an AC/DC power toggle switch, a DC power input, an AC power input, and then the AC power switch. Now, as far as the software side, FIIO offers a Windows or a Mac supported software application that features a 31 band lossless PEQ, and it also allows you to apply a variety of effects like dynamic range compensation and dynamic range enhancement. You can also access some additional features using the FIIO Control app. And then using the built-in menu, you can adjust the gain settings, apply filters, you've got access to EQ presets, custom EQs, and then you can also find most of the other basic settings, again, using either the remote or the menu knob. Now, as far as what we have on the inside, the K19 uses dual ES9039S Pro DAC chips. These are ESS's newest flagship DACs, and of course, they can decode all the higher quality audio formats like 32-bit PCM, DSD512, and then as far as Bluetooth codecs, it can decode AAC, SBC, aptX, aptX LL, aptX HD, aptX Adaptive, and LDAC. It also uses dual ACU silicone femtosecond clocks. But what's really impressive about the K19 is the sheer amount of power it can put out. And that power is being supplied by two custom-made 8-channel THX888 788 plus amp chips that can produce an impressive 8 watts of power with a 32 ohm load, which basically means it can handily drive almost any headphone you can throw at it. Okay, so I think that covers most of the main features, and I didn't even talk about the design and build, which both are excellent. And again, I will add a link in the description if you want to read more, and trust me, there's quite a bit more. And I should add that when you look at the $1,300 price tag, which I know, again, it's a lot of money, but I think it might help if you, again, click on the FIIO website link. I'll link it in the description, but go to FIIO's website and read a little more about its processing architecture, read about its unibody construction, the separated and shielded circuit boards, check out all of the components they used, like the Panasonic film capacitors, MELF resistors, gold-plated connectors. And I'm not saying all of that necessarily justifies the price, but there's clearly a significantly higher standard that's being upheld when it comes to the engineering and the structure and the components that are used in flagship level devices. And based on what I've seen and experienced with this unit, FIIO has clearly leveled up and put a lot of thought into the development of the K19. But of course, the only question that matters is, how does it sound? Well, let's talk about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the sound of the K19. But first, I quickly want to go over the gear that I tested it with, that I paired it with. So I tested it with several headphones and IEMs, including the Aria Stealth, the LCD 3 2022 version, but also some mid-tier stuff like the Sivga SV023, the Sivga P2 Pro, Meze 99 Classic, Zeus Elite, and then I also tested it with a bunch of IEMs as well, including the Ciadio Hakuya, Monarch MK2, the Elysian Diva, Andromeda 2020 version to test noise levels, and many others. Now, one thing I should reiterate is that this is FIIO's flagship desktop DAC amp and is what they refer to as studio grade. So what I'm going to be looking for is a linear and transparent presentation, very good dynamics, very good detail, and generally a high degree of technical performance, high levels of power output, zero background noise, basically, if I pair this with any of my reference level IEMs or headphones, I should experience, I'm hoping to experience, a near reference level listening experience. And my current reference desktop amp is this one here, the FIIO S17 Pro. And my portable reference is the FIIO M15S. Now, occasionally I do swap out DACs with my S17 Pro, but usually I just keep it paired with the Matrix Mini i4 because that's just an excellent DAC. And I can stream all of my music through it as well. And this combo right here is around $13.50. So the Mini i4 paired with the S17 Pro is basically the same price as the K19, but it does take up a little more desk space. And I have to say, I do love that I can use the K19 in its upright orientation. But in any case, we'll talk about how the K19 handled my headphones first. So I've been using this for several weeks and it's got a fairly good amount of hours on it. And I have to say, while I do tend to be drawn a little more towards the lush and warmer tonality of my S17 Pro, especially in 100 milliamp mode, and even when the S17 Pro is in 50 milliamp mode, the K19 does seem to have a slightly more clinical presentation. And that's how I would generally describe the overall presentation of the K19. Mostly linear, but clearly leaning clinical and maybe with a little bit of an edge up top. So if you are looking for something with a little more warmth and richness in its default mode, this is probably not going to give you that. But here's the thing, using the 31 band parametric EQ, you can add or subtract just about anything you want. And I did try that, and I was actually pretty impressed at how well that PEQ was implemented. Now, again, that's not really my thing. I want to be able to just plug in and listen, and I can do that with the S17 Pro. So the K19 is a little more clinical than I typically prefer, and even something I noticed in isolation before I even ever started my comparisons. That being said, when listening to music, more specifically vocals, while it did have a little bit of that edge, it wasn't so extensive, at least to my ears, as to ever reach the point of becoming fatiguing to me, and definitely not to the point of ever sounding unnatural. But I should reiterate, if you prefer something with a little more warmth, this device may not be for you. And of course, those attributes could be exaggerated or maybe even reduced depending on whether the signature of the headphone or IEM has a brighter presentation or is going to be more relaxed. What about dynamics? Well, this is where the K19 really impressed me using full-size headphones, because not only was I getting excellent transients and tightness, it also gave me extremely impactful bass, basically on par with my S17 Pro. And it didn't matter which headphones I was using, it drove basically all of them to what I felt was nearly to their optimal levels, again, in terms of transients and dynamics. It was simply excellent. So it gave me excellent impact, punch, and slam with speed that was on par with my S17 Pro. And that level of performance carried over into its detail rendering as well. And while I don't know if I'm prepared to say it's on par with some of the most resolving and detailed DAC amps I've ever heard, I do think I can safely say it's resolving and detailed enough to get very close to bringing out basically the best in most headphones and IEMs. Now, as far as staging, imaging, and separation, it's excellent. Of course, it will always only be as accurate or as good as your IEMs or headphones. But when I paired my LCD3s and Aria Stealths or my Elysian Divas, Hakuyas, it gave me excellent soundstage width, and the positional cues or the imaging was extremely accurate. Instruments were very focused, had great density, really nice weight, and the separation and the forward depth was also excellent. Now, in regards to how well this worked with IEMs, well, the K19 has 5 levels within its gain structure: low, medium, high, super high, and ultra high. And basically, the low gain setting worked perfectly with all of my IEMs, including my 2020 Andromedas, which of course are extremely sensitive. And in low gain, I still had plenty of volume control. And as I would expect with a well-engineered device like the K19, there was no background noise at all. So you have ample power, easily enough to push any headphone you can throw at it, yet delicate enough to pair with an extremely sensitive IEM, again, like my 2020 Andromedas. But I do need to point out all of the same sonic attributes that we talked about with headphones were present with IEMs. So it's linear, but it does lean clinical. It has very high levels of detail, very good dynamics, and it should allow most IEMs, including higher end IEMs, to show off their technical capabilities. But to wrap this up, let's go ahead and circle back to the main question that I posed in the opening of the review. Is the K19 worth the $1,300 asking price? I will say, in terms of versatility, features, design, and just the general build quality, I can see how they arrived at this price point because it does really bring a lot to the table from that perspective. But of course, it always comes down to sound. And this is not the best DAC amp combo I've ever heard, but neither is this, my Mini i4 and S17 Pro, and neither is my FIIO M15S or any of the other $1,000 or $1,500 stacks or combos that I've owned or tried. I also don't have thousands of dollars to throw at ultra high-end gear, but what the K19 does give me is detail levels, dynamics, technical performance that rivals this combination, the Matrix Mini i4 S17 Pro stack, but in the form of a combination unit, plus even more versatility in terms of connections. So I can incorporate it into my desktop setup or with my home audio system, which I did use in both scenarios, but of course it does not have streaming capabilities. All that said, if there was one thing I would change, it would be its slightly clinical presentation, because it's just a little too clinical for my preference, which is why I'm going to stick with my Matrix Mini i4 S17 Pro stack as my primary reference for now. With that in mind, the FIIO K19 is still going to remain right where it is on my desk as a backup or secondary reference, because it is that good in my opinion. So that concludes my review of the FIIO K19. If you are new to the Gizaudio channel and you like our videos, please take a minute and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to go a step further, you can also support us through our Patreon. I'll be sure and leave a link in the description. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this review. Please like this video. Please share this video. I hope you have an awesome day.